hello, welcome to the channel. Today's case is actually insane. This is the kind of case that leaves you with more questions than answers, and it's really annoying. Also, disclaimer before we begin, this case takes place in French. I don't speak a word of French, so if you're French or French speaking, I'm gonna butcher every single name in this case, and I offer you my most sincere apologies. Javier Pierre-Marie was born in Versailles on January 9, 1961 to an engineer Bernard Hubert Dupont de Ligonnès and Geneviève Thérèse Maitre. The Dupont de Ligonnès family is an old French aristocratic family, and they are originally from Annonay. The family owned a castle in France, there were bishops and musketeers in the family line, and they even had a signet ring with the family's motto engraved in it. So I think it's safe to say that little Javier was pretty fell off. All these family traditions were important to him as well, and as he grew up, his values were quite conservative. In the 80s, when Javier was 20 years old, he met his future wife, Agnes Hodanger, who at the time was 16 or 17 years old, and can I just say yikes? If you're 20, I just don't think you should date anyone who's under 18. Anyway, Javier and Agnes dated for some time, and Javier even introduced Agnes to his friends, but at this point of his life, Javier wanted to see the world and go on adventures, so he broke up with Agnes and traveled the world for a year. But when he came back, he was surprised to find Agnes pregnant with someone else's baby. I couldn't find out who was this someone and what happened to him, but anyway, apparently this was when Javier decided that he wanted to settle down and he wanted to do it with Agnes. They got married, and when the baby was born on July 7, 1990, Javier adopted him and gave him the name Arthur Nicolas Dupont de Ligonnès. Apparently this was not something you did in Versailles, at least not in Javier's social circle. You didn't just marry a woman who was pregnant with someone else's baby. So this was quite a bold move from Javier, and I could imagine the couple got some weird looks in the beginning. However, Javier and Agnes went on to have 3 more children, Thomas, Anne, and Binot. In 2011, the family lived in 55 Boulevard Robert Schumann in Nantes. Agnes, who was a very religious woman, worked as an assistant at a Catholic school, and her daddy is involved teaching the catechism. Religious as she was, Agnes regularly attended the mass with her children. She was a kind but a strict mother. You know when someone describes someone else as beautiful and smart, and you're just sure, I know I'm ugly. Well, I honestly don't know what else to say about Arthur, Anne, Thomas, and Binot. At the age of 20, Arthur earned a baccalaureate, don't know what that is, in science, industrial technology, and sustainable development. He was studying for a technical diploma in IT at the St. Gabriel Private College in St. Laurent-sur-Sèvre in Vendée department. He was also working as a waiter in a pizzeria. Thomas earned a baccalaureate in literature when he was 17 years old. He was studying music in a Catholic college in Angers, and he was very passionate about it. He was living in St. Aubin Hall of Resident and was described as, quote, ordinary boy who was often accompanied by his family to drop him off and picking up. He was quite shy, and his classmates thought he was very discreet. So his ex-girlfriend Pauline also described him as carefree and funny. 16-year-old Anne was very beautiful, and she even did some modeling. She was religious like her mother, and her friends thought she was approachable and considerate. She was in the 11th grade, and she was the best student out of the children. She went to the same Catholic school as her youngest brother, Binot, 13. Binot was an altar server at St. Felix Church. He loved playing drums and played them all the time. Still, the life of this aristocratic family wasn't as perfect as it seemed to be to an outsider. Javier's job description is really vague, but he called himself a businessman. What that meant was that he started several businesses, but none of them were actually successful. And thanks to this, the family was running out of money. In the beginning of the 2000s, the family tried moving to Florida, but for unknown reasons this didn't work out, and this failed chase of American dream took the last crumbles they had. In 2004, Agnes made an anonymous post on a French medical forum, Doctissimo. According to the comments she made, she was unhappy in her marriage and worried about money troubles. She wrote, quote, I'm lacking in everything. Tenderness, love, mutual friends, sex, everything. I have a husband who is very old-fashioned in his way of being in the family. The father is the head. He gives an order. We execute it without seeing the question or understand. Period. End quote. From 2001 to 2011, Javier felt like his problems were piling up. He was constantly losing money and summoners were after him. He knew that soon they would have to give up the house and there would be nothing left. In his social circle, this was a loss of face, and Javier didn't want his children to know that they barely had anything. On January 20, 2011, Javier's father Hubert died from a heart attack and Javier inherited the count's title. Javier went through his father's belongings trying to find the count's signet ring or any savings but found nothing. See, he was the only one in the family who was having money troubles. Actually, these problems had been continuing for years, and his father had spent the last years of his life in a rented apartment. The only thing Javier managed to find in his father's apartment was a .22 long rifle. He had never been interested in guns before, but now Javier decided to get a firearm license. He was registered at Charles des Gemoniers shooting range and he visited it 4 times between March 26th and April 1st. He even brought his sons Thomas and Binot with him, and he was planning to start teaching Arthur soon. Javier asked the teacher a lot of questions, especially about silencers. He decided to buy one for himself on March 12th. On April 4th, Anne and Binot didn't turn up to school due to illness. Their friends tried to contact them via text and online, but when they got no reply, they got worried. The friends remembered hearing something about the family moving to Australia because Javier had received a job transfer, but the friends couldn't believe that Anne and Binot would just leave without saying goodbye. On April 10th, family members and friends of Dupont de Ligonnès family received a letter claiming that the family had moved to USA. According to this letter, DIA had required Javier to infiltrate the International Drug League, and the family had gotten themselves new identities to protect themselves. Bruno de Stabenrad, Javier's longtime friend, was one of the people who received this letter, and according to him it was just like Javier to be like, "Hi everyone, we're moving to USA, see ya!" And that's why everyone considered this a real possibility. Estelle Chapon lived across the street in number 61 and she worked for the family. She did housekeeping tasks such as ironing shirts, etc. On Monday afternoon of April 11th, Estelle noticed that the whole house had been shut. She thought the cold window shutters were weird because the windows were always open, even when the family went on vacations. Estelle also noticed a note asking to stop delivering mail to the address. When the house remained abandoned on Tuesday and Wednesday, Estelle contacted the police. Police came to check on the house on April 13th. The front door was locked and they had to get a locksmith to open it. Everything in the house was in place aside from some bed sheets that had been removed and some open cabin doors. Family's cars, aside from one Citroën, were in place. The police didn't really see anything suspicious in that and they concluded that the family had left on their own will. However, Agnes's family wasn't happy with this. They simply couldn't believe that Agnes and her family would just vanish without saying goodbye, so they wrote a letter to the district attorney. The police visited the house again on April 15th, and this time they noticed some pictures missing from frames as if someone had left and taken important pictures with them. But still, nothing really suspicious. Agnes's family kept pressuring the police and they visited the house 3 more times on April 18th, 19th and 20th. On the 19th, a solace receipt from a DIY store was found. This store was located in Saint-Maur, around 320 kilometers from Nantes, and drive there would take around 3.5 hours. The receipt was dated on a Wednesday in late March and it included several purchases, including a roll of large pine liners and a box of adhesive plastic paving slabs. An investigation was opened, however the police wasn't finding any leads. But when the police visited the house for the 6th time in April 21st, one police noticed something weird under the terrace. When they started digging the ground, they discovered huge plastic bags that had been sealed with tape. In these bags were the remains of Agnes, Anne, Arthur and Binot, wrapped in sheets and blankets. They had been buried with religious icons such as candles and crosses, almost like mimicking a Catholic funeral. In this grave, the police also found the family's 2 Labrador dogs. Thomas had been buried separately from the rest of the family. The police checked the house again, they looked at the attic, but Javier's body was nowhere. He quickly became the prime suspect and a judge issued an international arrest warrant. Autopsies were conducted on April 22nd and a narcotic was found in all of the children. There was no narcotic in Agnes, but she had a sleep apnea machine that had been turned off at 3 a.m. April 4th. It seems like Agnes was the first victim and Arthur, Anne and Binot died later that night. But why was Thomas buried separately from the rest of the family? All the kids were at home for the weekend, but then Thomas had to go back to university and Javier left him. Thomas's friend who studied music with him confirmed that Thomas stayed at his house for the Thursday afternoon and they played music and watched TV. Thomas planned to spend the night at his friend's house, but Javier called him and told him that he should come back home immediately because Agnes had been in a cycling accident and was no comatose. Thomas ate quickly and took the train home at around 10 p.m. The next day, the friend tried to reach Thomas but only got short replies. 2 days later, the friend got a short message from Thomas saying, quote, "I'm out of battery, my dad's looking for a new charger for me." His ex-girlfriend Pauline also chatted with Thomas on Facebook on April 5th and she thought he was quote odd in his way of writing. The message to friend is the last time anyone ever hears of Thomas, and the police thinks he was murdered on April 5th, the night before Wednesday. There's a theory that Javier hesitated to murder Thomas. While Arthur was the oldest, he wasn't Javier's biological son, but Thomas was, and he was the oldest. So Thomas would be the one to continue the legacy of the family and carry the name Dupont de Ligonnès. And when Javier killed Thomas, he also ended his family line, which is not something you want to do when you are an aristocrat. All of the victims had been shot twice in the head with a .22 long rifle. So remember what caliber guns Javier inherited from his father? Was it a .22 long rifle? Yes, it was a .22 long rifle. But considering that every victim had been shot twice, there was a lack of blood in the crime scene. Actually, there were no traces of blood at all. There was also no fingerprints or DNA on the bodies. And that's quite strange. There are 5 victims that all died in their beds, and somehow there isn't any trace of them being moved. Another interesting thing about the crime scene is that the space under the terrace is around 1.2 meters high. This would mean that while Javier dug the graves, he wasn't able to use any long tools like a shovel. He was working on his hands and knees the whole time, so he dug 5 graves with his bare hands. Javier had neck and back problems, so this would have been quite challenging for him, unless he got someone to do it for him, but I don't know. The bodies were found on April 21st, and it was now April 22nd. No one has seen the family since April 5th. This leaves 3 weeks for Javier to do whatever. Even though the police started looking for him immediately, he had quite a head start. But Javier was in no hurry at all. The police soon found out that after murdering his family, Javier had spent a whole week alone in this house. A family friend had seen him alone during that week. Then after a week, he finally gets in the car and drives away from Nantes, and the speed camera catches him between Nantes and La Rochelle. Javier also doesn't give a shit about hiding. He leaves a paper trail by going to restaurants, and security cameras catch him withdrawing money. On April 13, Javier spends a night in a hotel in southeastern France and contacts his ex-girlfriend he dated in the 80s, but they didn't end up meeting. April 14, Javier sleeps in Hotel Formula 1 in Roquespoon-sur-Argens. I'm so sorry. The following morning, Javier is captured on a security camera walking across the parking lot of this hotel, carrying a bag that seems to have a long object in it. He walks into the woods and he has never been seen again. Okay, so usually after murdering their family annihilators commit suicide. So the investigators thought this was what Javier was about to do as well. He had lived in this area with Agnes during the first years of their marriage, and some of his children had been born there, and it kinda seemed like he was saying goodbye. And when the police saw the footage of him walking into the woods with a bag that seemed to have a long rifle in it, police was sure that he was going to kill himself. And so the police spent the next 2 months turning every rock of this area looking for the body of Javier Dupont de Ligonnès. But after 2 months, it became apparent that there was no body. Police checked if there had been any train tickets or plane tickets purchased in his name, but there was none. No stolen or rented cars in the area. Javier seemed to have just disappeared into thin air, and to this day he has not been found. The problem here is that Javier is a very normal looking man. He's medium high, he doesn't have any striking identifying features, he blends in. After retired chief of staff of Paris police Pierre Marpaz says in the Netflix Unsolved Mysteries about this case, people either see him everywhere or see him nowhere. Over the years, there have been over 900 sightings of Javier. On April 9, 2013, the police tried to find Javier's body again. The search was massive, and as investigators led by cave divers searched the area of old Big Martin's lead mines in Camp des Marais. In the June of the same year, a body was found 20 kilometers from where Javier was last seen. The autopsy didn't completely exclude the possibility of this being the body of Javier, but the prosecutor stated that, quote, "At this moment in time, it is not the body of Javier Dupont de Ligonnès." In 2015, a journalist received a picture of Arthur and Binot. On the back of this picture it was written, "I'm still alive." Nothing is known about this photo, it's just a huge question mark. I personally think it was a troll. Couple of people have been arrested because they look like Javier, and as I said, Javier looks like a lot of people. While I have no idea where Javier is and if he's dead or alive, I'm 100% sure that he's a narcissist. This guy would rather kill his whole family than face consequences of his own actions or lose face. According to N.G. Beryl, a forensic psychologist, family annihilators fall into 3 categories. One category is that the person might be suffering from some sort of psychosis. Then there are people who want to remove themselves from a family life they can't tolerate. And then there are people who are under huge amounts of stress, often financial. They believe this is somehow a way to spare the family from humiliation and themselves from embarrassment. And in my humble, non-experienced opinion, Javier Dupont de Ligonnès is a clear case of the last one, and it actually has a name, anomic familicide. Financial burden is a common theme amongst family annihilators, according to Dr. Neil Wipsdale, the author of Familicidal Hearts. He says that roughly a quarter to a third of family annihilation cases have financial issues in their roots. Often the perpetrator is a highly repressed individual, and even if the family might be in huge amounts of debt or facing a possible addiction or bankruptcy, they often appear completely normal on the outside. By killing their family, the perpetrator is trying to cling to some sense of normalcy and well-being. According to N.G. Beryl, quote, "It reflects very distorted thinking and very strained and depressed type thinking and desperation which culminates in this kind of terrible act." So this was the murder and disappearance of Dupont de Ligonnès family. This was a case that haunted me a lot after I first heard about it. I don't know if I can say I hope you enjoyed this video. Get some ice cream. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we see again in another video. Bye.